Here we go. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainable fitness programming, which is a bunch of fancy words for being able to do the fitness you want to do for the length of time that you would like to do it. So just a little bit about me. I'm a board certified clinical specialist in orthopedic physical therapy. I went for another year of school after my doctorate, and that was really nice because I gained a lot of extra knowledge in the world of orthopedic physical therapy. I'm a research nerd, so I read a lot and I learn a lot of really cool stuff, and then it lets me do a lot of talking like I'm about to do. I played football all the way through college, hockey and lacrosse in high school as well. I still love those sports a ton, but these days, most of my athletics is reduced to weight training and cycling, which I'm pretty obsessed with. And I'm one of those persons that needs to be active. And I figured that you folks tuning into this were somewhere along the lines of that, or someone that was definitely needing to stay active as the future goes along. So there's millions of different exercises and fitness goals that you could have out in the world. I wanted to list just a few here, where it could be losing weight, getting to be more fit, be getting stronger, faster. You want to run longer, bike longer, hike up a mountain, walk up the stairs, or maybe it's as simple as just not being tired by the end of the day. There's definitely a number of barriers to success. And here's just a list of a short few that I could think of off the top of my head. A really common one that comes up is time. Sometimes there's other priorities in life: kids, work, doing stuff around the house, fixing the house, selling the house, whatever it is, injuries that come up, setbacks to your progress that you weren't expecting that kind of knock you off course, mental fatigue when you're on week 16 and you're just tired of doing it. Misplaced effort, working really hard at something that might not be getting you towards the goal that you've been looking for, and sometimes missing foundational pieces. You look to do a task that you weren't quite prepared to do. So I wanted to start off addressing looking at a strong foundation. And I think that this is a very commonly overlooked component of just about any fitness program, right? So here, I'm going to talk about it. Let's just say running is one. A really common goal for folks is running. But to really break it down, and maybe an activity that you're interested in doing or continuing to do falls somewhere along the spectrum I'm about to go through, people don't look at the parts to the whole to figure out if they're capable of doing it over and over again or doing it for a length of time. So if I'm going to look at an athlete who is maybe in their 40s and injured their knee, and they want to return to running, and they ask, when can I run? And I don't give them a time answer. I give them a criteria answer. And I'll say, okay, well, first you got to be able to stand on one leg. How does that look? Can you do a heel raise? Can you squat? Can you lunge? Can you lunge in multiple different directions, not just forward? Can you land safely if I had you jump off of something? Because we can't have you jump in the first place. You can't land well. Can you jump and then land safely again? Can you jump and land safety a million times? I enjoy a little hyperbole now and again. Can you run for 10 seconds? Can you run for 10 seconds with good form? Can you run for 30 seconds with good form? Run for 1 minute with good form. Keep working up here, running for a minute intervals 10 times, 3 times a week, without that becoming something that becomes injurious. Running a 5K and then running a marathon, right? So like something like a couch to 5K program where people are saying, oh, how am I going to get off my couch and all of a sudden in 6 months run a marathon? Doesn't even talk about the fact that there might be some underlying deficits. And you can kind of look at any goal you want to get to somewhat like this. So I'm going to start off a little bit on the macro and then go a little bit more into some more little specific things that apply to all types of exercise and or goals. So for cardiovascular exercise and other repeated exercises, these are going to be a few little things specific to that. So often people overlook the quality of the movement that they can perform even as little as one time, and then they do it thousands of times. So my favorite example of that is rowing. You stick somebody on an erg, you want to see how the erg goes, and then they perform that movement over and over and over again, and potentially even to failure when they might not have been able to do it really well even once. Same thing with running, what a stride looks like. Do you land really heavy? Can you propel yourself from foot to foot instead of just landing on each foot every time you do it? If you're hiking, you should probably be able to do a whole lot of step ups with a lot of weight strapped onto you. Even if you're not planning to hike with a lot of extra weight, you should be able to take a little bit of extra force when you do something like a big box step up. What does your form look like when you do that? If you're going to be a dancer, like let's even break down something as simple as a leap, right? Like if you're going to have 4 hours of dance class per night, maybe you need to be able to make sure your leap and your landing to your leap and your ability to stand on one leg and heel raise look perfect at least once, and then maybe make sure we can do it tons of times. And then I don't know if any of you out there are interested in CrossFit, but this is one of the classic culprits to it, because often people want to get a really good workout, but they're missing the base layer of perfect Olympic lifting form, and then they choose to do that to something like failure. So these are a couple tips where you want to make sure that your form looks good, and then we start working on how many times we can do it over and over again. Another common pitfall is you not want to mistake cardiovascular exercise for strength exercise. My favorite line to describe this is hammers are for nails, not for screws, right? If we want to put a screw in a wall, we need a drill. And if you want to get cardiovascular fitness better, you need to do cardiovascular exercise. If we need to get your strength better, we got to do some strength exercise. You're probably not going to get stronger legs from doing cardiovascular exercise. They're probably just going to get a lot better at doing the same strength you already have over and over again. In my little comment here, I mentioned repeatedly performing a movement poorly with poor strength will only improve your ability to perform a movement poorly with poor strength repeatedly. If you don't have the strength to perform it repeatedly, consider strengthening it first. So really often your precursor to cardiovascular exercise should be some type of strength exercise. Segueing into that, some tips for someone looking to increase their strength or be able to do something like go to the gym and lift weights repeatedly over years, or maybe that's just a component of your program that you've decided to embark on and you want to add a little bit. So start by looking at how well you can move your own body weight before you add other weights. So if you're limited in something like a push-up, a pull-up, a squat, a lunge, a single leg squat, maybe you could consider looking at those movements and offloading them if you can't perform them perfectly. So maybe it's a inclined bench press so that you're not having your full body weight, push up, so you don't have your full body weight on your arms, or an assisted pull up, or a hand supported single leg squat, right? These are things I might look at before I said, oh, hey, we should add a whole lot of weight to the mix. Always prioritize your form over strength, especially early in the 4 to 6 weeks of a program. During this time, think you're really forming the software, so later you can alter the hardware. In the first 4 to 6 weeks of your program, you really want to try and ingrain the type of movement you're doing and how well you can do the form, so that later, as you increase the weight, form is not even a concern. It's what you've been practicing for 4 to 6 weeks. You will see strength improvements in this 4 to 6 week time, but they're mostly going to be due to improving your coordination, not because you had some change in the actual cellular level muscle fibers. This is going to make you stronger later because it's just ready to go. You might want to prioritize the speed of a controlled movement rather than adding additional resistance, especially if you're not comfortable with additional resistance yet. You can improve strength a ton by working on speed, because you're essentially working on how well your brain can fire that muscle quickly. And it's an interesting thing, when your brain sends the signals down the nerves faster, it recruits more muscle fibers at once. So we kind of get more bang for our buck when we work on a little bit of speed training. This can never be in the place of having adequate form, right? And so that doesn't mean you're having uncontrolled, like being on the leg press, throwing yourself up so you're going in the air, probably not a great idea. We probably want to make sure we can still do it controlled, but we might want to move it 10% faster than we did if we weren't able to move up to the next weight yet. Also understand there's going to be a plateau somewhere between 8 and 6 weeks into your program. This isn't 100% the case, especially with a really well-designed program, but in most cases, if you're doing the same thing for about 8 weeks, somewhere after that, not too far along, you might hit a plateau, and it's natural. And this is actually where your body starts to need to make true adaptations, not just practicing weightlifting to get you stronger. This is really when the improvements you're looking to make structurally are happening. Some tips for yogas, Pilates, Barre, and other classes that people have a tendency to go to really frequently, especially in our area. These are offered almost in every town. Some things to know: yoga won't help your strength. So it may help your tolerance to moving your body weight. And if you do have a deficit in moving your body weight, it will help you do that. But it's really designed more to help your tolerance to holding positions. And true yogis will argue with me here a lot, but that's okay. I respect the ability of yoga to help improve your positional tolerance. If you do need to improve strength in one direction or in another, using strength and conditioning principles will probably help you more. Pilates is very challenging in making you stronger than moving your own body weight. So if you really enjoy Pilates, if it helps your mobility and it helps you feel better, it's an awesome thing, especially if it's fun as well. But don't use that to substitute for some type of strength training. I promise I'm not telling you to become a bodybuilder or a power lifter, but even just a little bit of added resistance can go a really long way for you. Lifting 1 to 5 pound dumbbells is only going to prepare you for lifting no more than 1 to 5 pounds. That's another harsh reality. In a lot of spin classes, I know they hand out little dumbbells, and at the end of class, you lift them like 3,000 times, and then you go on. That doesn't have zero value, but it is limited in how much it's going to help you in the long run with any other goals. It's not particularly great for toning. It's not particularly great for strengthening. So it's more just to add something at the end of the class to add some variation, which does have its value. And classes don't quite account for the individual. So a specific program targeted more towards you, or you seeking out to make sure you maybe do a little self-assessment and see where you're at, and then adjusting accordingly might be better than what teachers in a class can do. And obviously everybody has their favorite teacher, and there are some teachers that are absolutely phenomenal and do adjust for these things, but it's not quite as common as it should be. Here's a tip here. Start off slow. It's basically what I've said the past slides on a few different things, but here it is in bigger writing. Those were some more sciencey reasons, but when you do start something, have some patience. It's really common when we embark on a goal or we have a goal that we want to do. We really go into it gung-ho in the first week, or maybe the second week, or maybe by the time we hit the third week, we're like, okay, let's do all the things. It's time to up my mileage. It's time to do 3 more yoga classes. It's time to do, you name it. And at this point, we start to maybe see the negative impacts of doing more than we're ready to. So here's the real sciencey version of that. We call it acute to chronic workload ratios, right? So the that's basically the amount you're doing currently. So let's use like the amount you do time of exercise at a certain effort this week versus what you've been used to for, let's say, the past 4 weeks, and putting that in a ratio. So the uncomplicated version, if you do more than you're used to too quickly, you have a better chance of getting hurt sometime in the next month. And that's what the research has shown when looking at these workload ratios. If you're doing a little more than 130% of the workload that you're used to, it does have a tendency to increase your injury risk. And if you're under 80%, frequently, you have a chance to drop down in your workload and not be used to your 100%. So my example to show this would be if you average running 10 miles per week, you can safely progress by adding 2.5 miles over the course of that week, hopefully not in one clip. And you can stay in the safe range and have a pretty chill week by decreasing down to 8 miles over the course of that week. There are limitations to this ratio, and automatically there's a lot of questions that come up with this. It doesn't account for your effort levels. If you decided to run your average 10 miles a week, but you upped your effort level from a 6 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10, this kind of workload does make it more challenging to track. Less sleep is going to make things more challenging. Poor nutrition is going to make it harder to recover. If you're adding a lot of other activities in life, that would have to be accounted for in your chronic workload ratio, or maybe if it's new this week, that would be accounted for. Stress lowers your threshold for tolerating more activity, and not having the adequate strength to perform the task over and over again is going to lower your ability to handle more later. So these are a few of the little caveats that come along. with this, basically understanding this concept is less, crunching your numbers and recording what you do and understanding, I need to know the exact miles I ran this week and do that. All right, you're probably going to be okay to get 135%. That's not going to be a big deal. But having a giant spike in the amount of classes you went to this week, or if you're used to going to the gym 1 day a week and you for a whole month start going to the gym 4 days a week gung-ho and don't have a little bit of a ramp up of that might eventually come back and your body might say, hey, we need a week off or two, something's a little bit achy, right? Nipping that in the butt at the start and planning to ramp up correctly might do really well for you. Cool part of the research is if you happen to be really strong, they found if you're strong enough to squat 2 times your body weight, these ratios just entirely don't apply. But you might be listening to me now and say, hey, there's no chance of me squatting 2 times my body weight. Okay, well, the closer you get to that, if you can only squat half of your body weight currently and you worked up to that, you can never get close to it, but you'd be better than you were today. So pretty much the moral of the story, being a little bit stronger allows your tolerance to be able to do a lot of stuff to improve. Consistency is key with any kind of exercise program. Consistently not doing too much or too little. Looking for a consistent training load is
You're muted. Joseph, you're muted.
3 weeks in a row, right? With your consistent training load, you want to make sure it's something that's consistently difficult enough to make changes in your body, but it's also light enough that you can be consistent, right? If your workout on Monday knocks you out so you can't take your yoga class on Tuesday, it might be too challenging for you. If you ran 5 miles so much that you couldn't run a few miles the next day, that might be a little bit too much that you couldn't even get in your recovery workout or whatever it happened to be. Allow yourself for some lapses in the consistency. 2 missed days in 2 weeks is no big deal, but you definitely don't want that to turn into a missed month out of the year. Somewhere along this is, then the question becomes, how much consistency do I need? Well, if you have less than 2 rest days per week, you increase your risk for injury by about 5.2 times. So thinking about that would be something to consider when you're planning things. It's not that you can't work out 6 days a week. That's totally fine, but maybe maybe that 6th day needs to be a lighter day or something not as intense as the rest of the days. Variability. So you can't go hard every day. You may be able to go harder if you train a few different activities, like maybe you like cycling and weightlifting, maybe you like rock climbing and dancing. These are going to use your body in a few different ways. So that allows you to do a little bit more without the same amount taxed on you. But if you're taking both of those activities and elevating them to a very high level and expecting yourself to perform equally at each activity at the highest level, that's when things are going to start to get a little bit challenging and you may overtax the body, or your performance at one or the other activity can drop a little bit. These are some of the caveats that I'd be speaking of. You also can't go easy every day. If you have all low intensity workouts, probably the most common way I see this is middle-aged folks going out for a jog 5 times a week. They're like, yeah, I run 15 miles and that's a great number of miles per week, but every workout is just a jog, right? They get to a point where they're not gaining any benefit and the body starts to just get used to the level it's at. And then if there is some type of spike or some type of drop, you haven't raised your ceiling enough to be able to tolerate those things. Mixing in a few hard efforts here and there keeps your ceiling very high, not right above the level that you're at. Endurance needs strength and everyone needs some endurance. If you're someone that loves to go to the gym and just lift weights or just do a circuit on the machines, maybe you should mix in something that gets your heart rate up a little bit, or something that makes your heart beat a little harder for a long time, long and low. That's great for you too, right? And maybe you're an endurance athlete. Maybe you love to walk every day. Maybe you love to run. Maybe it's time to add some chair squats when you get home from your walk with your friends. Maybe it's time to do some step ups when you get home from your walk with your friends. Or maybe the next day that you don't walk with your friends, you do some step ups and you hold on to, I don't know, 2 gallons of water, one in each hand. And that's enough to add a little resistance to it. You know, if you don't have a gym or access to those kind of things. If you're a runner, you need to do some strength training. It improves your performance. It raises that ceiling so you can tolerate some ebbs and flows in your training. Those things tend to help out a lot. And get outside your normal movement pattern or what the movement pattern you like to do. Do something different. If you are a runner in a straightforward line, maybe one time go play a little basketball, change some direction, right? If you're a weightlifter, maybe you should spend some time in a yoga class and get used to moving in some different directions. Maybe it's not an everyday thing for you. Maybe it's a once a month thing. Maybe it's a once a week thing, right? But getting in some different patterns that aren't in your straight forward, backward, this is the exercise that I do, that can help a ton. Exercises that do have more movement variability, which tend to be a lot more sports and not just exercise related, do tend to be a little more sustainable because you're not doing the same thing repetitively. The variability helps with mental fatigue as well. So the occasional change up makes things more fun. It makes some exercises fun, especially when you're going for a goal. So, you want to make some exercises fun, especially when you're going for a goal. If you're a power lifter going for your meet, you should probably have some days where you go to the gym and just do whatever you felt like doing that day. Maybe you didn't feel like maxing out. Maybe you were tired of doing heavy squats. Maybe you wanted to do some, I don't know, some bar swings because that was a fun thing for you. Okay, have that day. If you're a runner and you've been training for your marathon, maybe one day you just go out in the woods and go for a hike because you enjoyed it, right? Maybe you're tired of, working on your handstand that you've been working on in yoga and you just miss the movement flow that you like to do. Go roll with that too. Don't lose track of your structured work when you do that. Make sure that's something that you slotted in. Maybe you just subbed it out for another workout or something like that. But definitely make sure there's some fun involved. And definitely take days off when you feel the need, or just take an off day by doing something fun and easy. If you're a runner, taking a day on a light beach cruiser bike down the beach with the family is a way to take a day off. If you're a weightlifter, going out and playing some volleyball and just
You're muted again.
maybe you're running and you didn't have enough time to get out there. Maybe you are running and you notice your times take a plateau or go down a little bit because maybe you've been training too hard and your body's telling you you need to slow down. Maybe you're too tired to be able to support yourself in a yoga pose, right? Maybe you need to take a step back and make sure your arms are strong enough to do something that you're looking to do. Just take a minute and reset, kind of assess the situation. Setbacks are often when people incur an injury because then they put a ton of effort in to get their exercise volume up because they think that that extra effort level is going to get them back to where they were. Often your setback is something that you just need to assess that current specific situation, whether it's time off of exercise that was forced and unplanned. You need to start slow, getting back into it, be smart about it, right? Sometimes it's that you're stuck at a plateau and maybe you need to kind of look at the program and see, is there something that you're not working on, or consult a friend or a professional on what you can do to bust through that plateau. But with all that, where I was getting to is you want to stay the plan, or just make sure you get back on it. You'll bounce back faster than you think. So here's a fun question I get from many of my patients who want the gains of doing fitness, but they really don't enjoy it. It's something that they have to do, and it's not really what they like to do. So they ask me, what's the least I can do and still work towards my goal? The bare minimums. Well, the real answer is highly dependent on your goal. If you want a marathon, the bare minimum is not very minimum, right? If you just want to stay fit, doing some strength training that's very minimum, making sure you can move your body weight. Maybe it's just a few lunges, 3, 4, 5 sets of 5, maybe 3 sets of 10 lunges, right? Make sure you can move your body weight. maybe every other week, change it up, do a couple other directions, get in and out of a chair, do something to get your arms lifting some weights, do things in standing, make sure you can, make sure there's a minimal balance component to it. Not that you're standing on something wobbly, but that maybe you have to press a weight overhead and make sure you don't wobble when you do it, right? These are some things that you throw in twice a week. Get to the gym for 30 minutes, lift something, and then maybe go for a walk, right? Getting 45 minutes of some type of low-level cardiovascular exercise a day is great. Now, people look at me and they go, that means I have to set aside 45 minutes? No, all right? Maybe you walk somewhere that you were planning to drive for 15 minutes. Maybe in the morning you walk your dog for 15 minutes, right? Maybe later in the day you did step ups on your stair for 5 minutes or something to the tune of that. And these are lofty goals, but just getting out and doing something to the tune of that is great for you. And weaving these things into your life is ways to keep those bare minimums a lot easier. Longer endurance activities that might be a goal do have a lot bigger time requirement because you can't replace your base level work. You have to build a big cardiovascular base to be able to tolerate something like, if you want to ride a bike for 100 miles, you probably need to put in a lot of 75-mile rides. That's just the truth, right? And that's similar with a lot of strength training too. If you want to lift a ton of weight, there's just a certain amount of time. The good thing with weight training is you don't have to be at the gym for a long time if you do it more days per week. And it's also easier to do less when your floor is higher. So if you are a triathlete that's used to doing Ironmans, you might be able to sustain your fitness a little bit better and your bare minimum is going to be lower. You might be able to get away with a more infrequent high intensity training plan that kept you at your high level. But even that has its restrictions, and there's only so long you can do that before things start to go down. Time constraints. This is one of the biggest things I see getting in the way of people getting to their fitness goals. And always remember, something's better than nothing. If you have no time that day and you were supposed to go to the gym and do a 45-minute chest workout, but you can get 3 sets of 10 push-ups in, it was definitely better than doing nothing. If you wanted to go on a run and you didn't have the time, you can go out in the driveway and run 5 wind sprints, and I promise you'll be back in less than 10 minutes, and do that right before you get in the shower, and then go to the event you need to go to and you get something done. Higher intensity work can be a short-term solution, right? So especially for people that are doing cardiovascular work, trying to weave in some more high intensity stuff can be the answer to not having enough time. And then that can give you those boosts that you need to go out on your 5-mile run that weekend if you weaved in a few high intensity sessions during the week. My personal favorite thing to do is have a way I can have access to a recumbent bike, a stationary bike, or a treadmill. And then I try and do work while I'm doing it. Especially when I was studying in college, and now that I have work to do, I can get on a recumbent bike. I bring my laptop with me. I do my notes. Some people it's not comfortable for them to have to read or go on a Zoom call while they're on a treadmill. But, right now you could be listening to me and be on a treadmill, and this could be something you're doing. Maybe you have a business meeting and you could do that as well if you didn't have to be clicking away at keys. But these are some things that are great ways to weave some of that fitness into your day. And I highly encourage that. Maybe strength is your issue, and maybe you can make a point in your house that, okay, every time I walk past the stairs, my calves aren't strong and that's getting in the way of my runs. Okay, I'm going to do 10 heel raises every time I pass the stairwell today. Maybe, okay, 10 was too much time. Fine. Give me 5 heel raises every time you pass the stairwell today. All right. It's just a little thing to think about how to weave it into your day. I stole that from my high school football coach, who, when we would talk about it was hard to drink enough water, he would tell you, when you pass the sink, take a drink, put a cup at the sink. Every time you pass it, put a little water in it, take a sip, right? So it was a stupid thing, but every time you thought about it, you passed the sink, you took a drink. Maybe you'll think about that with an exercise that you choose in your house. Mental state. You got to make sure you make some allowances. You're going to have good and bad days, and you will have all the time and none of the time, right? There's going to be times where you can do you have all the time in the world, and you spend a month in January and I'm going to exercise, and then it was too much, right? And some days you're going to have none of the time and you need to rush to do something, but fitting a little something in on that day might be way better than doing none, right? You're going to go to the gym, and some days the weight's going to feel like 1,000,000 pounds, and some days you're going to feel stronger than others. Just know those things are coming up and don't beat yourself up when it comes. Roll with the punches, stick to the plan. Always remember that rest is when the gains are made. I think there's a mental component to not wanting to take rest days. And it's definitely because we all love to work harder, not necessarily smarter. I'm personally as guilty of this as anybody, especially because the fitness activities I like to do, I love to do, and I don't want to stop doing them. But it's incredible sometimes when you've trained for 13 weeks in a row and you take 1 week off and all of a sudden you get back and all your numbers are up through the roof. A tough concept to remember as well is you're not ready for your goal until it's readily apparent that you are. You don't bench 500 pounds by benching 500 pounds. You get there by benching 100, 105, 110. We could do this for a long time. Thinking about that with any goal you might have. Same thing with running, right? You don't run 2 miles by repeatedly running 2 miles poorly. Maybe you need to start with, okay, can I sustain perfect form for 2 minutes, right? And you do 2 minutes and then you walk for a minute and you build that up to a 5-minute interval. I mean, a 5-mile length. And then all of a sudden you can do that for 3 minutes running, 1 minute off, 4 minutes running, 1 minute off. And all of a sudden you're crushing 2 miles with perfect form and you've worked on elevating your pace and the form looks good. These are all things to make yourself a little more efficient. That would be good to make sure you don't try to push yourself to your goal and get there the wrong way. How do I deal with wanting to do the no pain, no gain, rest is for the weak, effort is everything thing? You're going to have to prepare for some forced time away from your chosen activity at some point. There's a high likelihood that going with that method is going to come back at some point and not be the best option for you. There are some people that deal with this well, and they tend to be some of the most elite athletes in the world. And the surprising thing is they're not elite because they train like this. Usually their body's ability, strength, endurance, capacity, I could use all these types of words, that has allowed them to have this tremendously high ceiling for activity, allows them to push to that point that even when they're at the level of fatigue, they're not really as hard as they could have pushed themselves. If you're pushing yourself too close to your ceiling consistently, there's usually a point that it's going to come back and haunt you. So I stole a couple things from previous lectures I've done that we do have on YouTube, and I plan to offer again soon because now we have Zoom and this format's a little bit better. But this slide is about sleep. Basically, sleep more than 8 hours. It significantly reduces your risk for injury, right? Anybody less than 7 hours average per night over 2 weeks had a 51% increase in injury risk. I'm not going to talk too much more about it than that, but that's a really good way to keep your exercise plan sustainable. Then I stole this too from another lecture. People really like to do body work. They like stretching, massage, and mobility work. It probably has significantly less to do with you having a sustainable program than the factors than we talked before. If you like to add these things, make sure you add them because you like them, not because they actually do much for you. If you don't have the time to go on a run because you need to stretch before, it's probably not the reason why you're injuring yourself when you're running. It probably is something in your training plan or your body's capacity to do so that's getting in the way and the reason why you need to stretch. I thought this meme was very funny because this is how people look when they're on a foam roller. I hope some people are chuckling. When I do this, I can't see your faces. Here's some more about stretching. What it does do for a very short period, it'll increase your range of motion. It'll improve your tolerance to stretching. It'll give some very short-term feel good. What it doesn't do, it doesn't reduce injury risk. If you can see in a study, they found that stretching only reduced your injury risk by about 4%, while strength training reduced your injury risk by about 69%. So that's something to think about, where you should spend your time. If you spend 30 minutes twice a week stretching, maybe you could shift that to doing some strength work and it would reduce your risk to have some injury. It doesn't actually lengthen your muscles. You need a lot more force to lengthen your muscles than just pulling on them for 30 seconds to 5 minutes. Unfortunately, it takes hours, but the good thing is that strength training can actually improve your flexibility equally, if not more, which I think I say, should I still stretch? Probably not. If you have time to waste, then yes. If not, there are a lot better ways to stay healthy and improve your performance. You know, you have flexibility is a little bucket, mobility is a little bucket, your endurance is a pretty big bucket, strength is a really big bucket. Hopefully everybody can tell my biases at this point. And resistance training can improve your flexibility as much as static stretching. So this kid found out all about it. So you're telling me strength training reduces my risk for injury and makes me more flexible? Most definitely. I like this dog. So strong is sustainable. That doesn't mean you're going to turn into this guy right here, but weaving some of that into your life, if I could leave you with one thing today, I really hope that it would be get a little bit stronger in your life, handle your own body weight really well, and pretty much anything you want to do, you're going to be able to do. A little bit about some of the physical therapy. We've been around for a while, since 1988. We're independently owned and operated, and we're on the Summit Short Hills border, easily accessible from Route 24. We have 5 now. I apologize, I didn't correct this. We have 6 therapists, and we have a new therapist that we hired. Her name is Jessica Belenadoik, and she's really awesome. We're really happy to bring her on staff. Some services we offer, we have direct access. You are capable of seeing us without a doctor's script, which is really awesome. We do orthopedic physical therapy, manual therapy, the hands-on stuff, exercise and pain management. We also do performance therapy. So if you're someone looking to get towards your exercise goals, fitness goals, health goals, we can provide counseling on that using the knowledge we have as physical therapists. And check us out online. Here's our website, and I'm going to open the floor up to questions now. I knew I flew through some things really quickly, and I can see, hang on. Terry, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. So I always like to stretch, and I thought stretching was a good thing. So why is the strength training beneficial for flexibility? Is it because the range of motion is actually stretching? Like why does the strength make you more flexible?
Cool. I love answering this. It's just a little bit of a technical answer, right? So your muscle fibers are made of something called sarcomeres. These sarcomeres essentially are the things that like link past each other and allow the muscle to contract. They're kind of like muscle cells, right? In order for you to lengthen them, like to get actually more flexible, you have to pull on them. I think the research said something like 9 hours consecutively, or for some reason, strength training also can help lengthen them. It's about the amount of force that you put those muscles through in order to get them to lengthen. So if you can put let's say you're doing a lunge, right? If you worked into a deeper lunge and you were trying to be able to be more flexible to bring your knee to your chest, that might be more beneficial to have enough force to lengthen out those muscles. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's just something in the muscles themselves that actually like the resistance.
Yeah, it's basically you need more force than stretching allows to lengthen out a muscle.
Okay.
Cool.
Except that there's some muscles that you can't really strengthen unless I don't know that. Maybe we can strengthen all our muscles and we don't know.
You can strengthen just about all of them to my knowledge. Yeah, it might take some creative positioning, but you can definitely do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Anybody else? Hang on, I got a comment here from Catherine. Yes, Catherine, if you wanted some counseling on some strength training or building a program or any kind of counseling you need for health, wellness, and fitness goals, we have our performance therapy program.
Oh, that's great, because that's new, isn't it?
Yeah, relatively. We've been doing that for about 2 years now.
Oh, you have? Because I know last summer when I was there and stuff, I was like, oh, can I just go to you guys to use your machines? And John was like, well, because, you know, patients and stuff like that. Well, the social distancing was necessary, right?
Well, to clarify, it's not a gym program.
Right.
It's basically us counseling on you doing what you would like to do. So the actual workouts don't tend to happen in our facility. Most of the people we'd see on like a monthly basis.
Okay.
And we would design a program for you. Maybe once a month you come in, you check in with us, and we design that program so you understand what to do, and then you go and execute it. And you have access to us, and we've performed a full, thorough evaluation on you to make sure that it's adequate for what your needs are.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime. Anybody else have any questions? Let me see if anybody else is asking anything.
Question, no, but comments. I just wanted to thank you. This was really, I got a lot more out of this than I thought I would.
Yeah. Hey, I'm really.
I made a whole bunch of notes that I think are going to help me out quite a bit.
Hey, man, that's awesome.
Most importantly, mixing it up. Strength training. Most of my exercise is either running or riding a stationary cycle. And by the way, I read a lot when I ride a stationary cycle.
Look at this guy.
This was really, and I want to get more of my upper body into my exercise, because I think that strength will probably help with my favorite exercise, which is running. So
Cool.
I wanted to say thanks.
Yeah, of course, man. To kind of piggyback on your point there, I think too much of our exercise as humans is purely forward backward. I struggle with it as well. So I really love to lift heavy weights, and I also really like to ride my bike kind of competitively. And biking is purely pumping up and down straight forward on pedals. Most of weightlifting when you go to the gym is kind of straightforward backward, maybe save for like a dumbbell lateral raise, right? Or maybe you see one person doing a lateral lunge at the gym. Getting some kind of strength training in your life in the rotational push-pull, one arm stuff, one leg stuff really works you in a little bit different ways that are a lot more how we actually move on a day-to-day basis. So just weaving that into your life can make some big changes. Cool. Thanks, man.
So much. This is great that you guys do this. I didn't know you did the videos. I just knew it like the last year that you've been doing it. I don't know if you were doing it before, but.
Yeah, about a year, maybe 2 years ago, we started hosting in-person events, seminars, basically, right? And that was kind of challenging because you had to come to the clinic, right? Like I don't know how many of you guys would have been able to attend if you had to get out of your house tonight, throw some not PJs on and come listen to me talk, right? I know I'm entertaining and all, but that's probably a pretty high threshold. But with the dawn of the pandemic, people are a lot more comfortable hopping on something like Zoom.
Right.
Prior to this, people didn't really want to get on a video call. So now we do that, and it's a great way for us to get information out to people so everybody can be healthier.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Yeah, of course. It was awesome seeing everybody.
Thank you.
If we don't have anything else, I'm going to say good night, and it was a pleasure meeting / seeing all of you. Okay.
All right.
Thanks so much.